Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Amateurs. I'm Bryce Barnes.
And I'm Jaron Randall.
And on this podcast, we look to give some insight on how to become a successful college athlete and also potential career paths within the sports industry that you should pursue.
But don't just take our word for it. After all,
we're just a couple of amateurs.
What's up, guys? Today we had the opportunity to speak with two-time Emmy-nominated sports reporter, Camron Smith. He's worked with some of the top companies in sports media, including the Big Ten Network, MSG Network, and Nike, just to name a few. For those looking to pursue a career in sports, tune in to find out how Camron leveraged his experience as an athlete, authenticity, and work ethic to become a standout within his field. Camron also spoke on the importance of being proactive, maximizing each opportunity, and gave great advice on how students can start preparing for a career in sports broadcasting. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. We're with two-time Emmy-nominated sports reporter, Camron Smith. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to be on the show with y'all, the amateurs.
Okay.
I've really made it, man, since I'm on the show now.
I'm happy to hear that. So you've worked with Comcast Sports, the Big Ten Network, Overtime, MSG Network, Nike, and others, man. Your resume so far is amazing. Is it safe to say that you're the go-to guy when it comes to sports reporting in Chicago or events in Chicago?
You know what, man? I try and paint myself as that when I was first coming up in my broadcast career. Just kind of for me, hearing all those different networks that I've been blessed to work with and just gain experience and just learn under to develop my own style. Just hearing those, it just kind of is a reflection of me, of the 13 years that I've been in the business of, what kind of impact I wanted to make. And I was, to my point, what I was saying is when I first came out, that was one of my goals of being the go-to guy in Chicago when it comes to sports, whether it's high school, college, or professionally. And it's still there in a sense, but I think the bigger picture for me, what I've always wanted to do is just impact people and impact lives for kids that look like us, boys and girls, to let them know that, hey, there is some kind of representation for you in sports media if you decide to go this route. So it wasn't that much. When I was growing up, I could probably count on one hand of the amount of Black sports reporters that I can remember, and that's male and female, right? Mm-hmm. So thinking about my number one guy was Ahmad Rashad, because growing up, like being born in the 80s and early 90s, that stuff was a big thing, and what he was able to do with NBC Sports. So he was always my go-to guy. And then Jim Rose, who's still a sports reporter in Chicago, like his longevity is crazy. So he was another example of what I could be. But then thinking about on the side of Black women, you have Robin Roberts, who's been phenomenal throughout her career and is doing more in America. But people forget that she started out, well, I wouldn't say she started out, but she had a career in sports where she was on SportsCenter and was getting these one-on-one interviews with a lot of different athletes. So that's three right there. So probably a couple more to really, really think about who's influenced me. But it's more so about making the impact for those that look like me, that's in the emerging adults. I'm not going to say younger generation because I ain't that old. When somebody said the younger generation, they kind of 60 plus. I ain't reached that yet. So the emerging adults, I try and inspire them. So that's replaced that goal of being the go-to guy in Chicago when it comes to sports.
Gotcha. And the representation is definitely important. That's one thing I know for sure that we're going to try to push, as we bring on sports professionals. But let's reminisce a little bit. Who was the first person to put the ball in your hands, and where did your love for the game originate?
Wow. First person to put the ball in my hand was my pops. So my father played basketball, uncles, cousins, my older brother played. So my dad was the guy that put the ball in my hands as a kid. And my older brother, as I got older, kind of grew a little bit as we hung around each other. If you have a sibling, you understand this, whether it's a younger or older sibling, is that you're going to play together, you're going to get in fights together, all those things. So he started to take more control of teaching me the game and how to be tough and just things that I need to work on. But my pops was the first one that put the ball in my hand. The love for the game is just developing and growing on the West Side, man. You find out how rich the tradition is of basketball in Chicago, one, because you're traveling all over the city. Whether you play small fry AAU, open gyms. I can't remember the name of the league, but before for all my Southside people that's from Chicago, over by Kenwood High School, before that kind of shopping mini mall area, all those stores went up. There was like an outdoor court and outdoor league where my brother, my cousins, and I would play, and my uncle put us in. So thinking about cats that came from there that played in that league, just so much talent. So you develop a love quickly, especially if you want to be good. And then you think about the era that I grew up in. That was the Michael Jordan era, so everybody wanted to hoop, right? So it was inspiration on that point. And you just see somebody so great in what they're doing with basketball, and you understand that, on the other hand, how great your city is when it comes to playing the game. That love just deepens even more. So you want to just kind of keep hooping, keep developing, and just, find anything and everything that has to do with basketball.
Right. And I talk to Jaren about this all the time. We were born in '98, the last year, like the last championship year. So we've experienced the aftermath, of the legacy that they built. But I can't even imagine. My older cousin Chloe and my sister. They would just tell me stories about like when they win Game 7 or Game 6, everybody's outside, having a great time. I can't even imagine that. And I was born right at the tail end of that.
Yeah, man, it was kind of arrogance in a sense after a while, after the Bulls won so many championships and Jordan was just so great. Like there were probably 1 or 2 times where I doubted that the Bulls would win, that Mike wouldn't pull it out, and he did. Like the first time was the second game winner that he hit against Cleveland. I believe this was 91, 92 in the playoffs. If I'm off a year, then please forgive me. But Gerald Wilkins was guarding him. And I was watching the game in the front room, my pops and my brother. And final shot, Mike gets it, like he's backing Gerald Wilkins down on the right wing, backing him down with the left hand, and Wilkins pokes the ball away. Right? And I'm like, oh, I don't know if Mike is going to be able to do this. Now, this is coming off of, like, hitting the shot against ELO and going through the trials and tribulations of the Pistons. And I believe this was 92 because they had won their first championship already against the Lakers. So they're playing Cleveland. Wilkins pokes the ball away. And I'm like, oh, no, he's not about to do it. Mike gets the ball back, goes into his classic fadeaway, and that was game. He just kind of put his arm like, yo, this is what I do. So I was like, after that point, I was like, man, I will never doubt Michael Jordan. I think the second time, it was probably more just fear instead of doubt. I guess those are kind of aligned in a certain sense. But when they played against Indiana, and we saw this in the Last Dance documentary, when Indiana took them to 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that was one of the fears that I had, that, man, I don't know if the Bulls going to be able to do this, because this is coming off of a 3-peat, Mike being retired. They had won back in 96, 97. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to pull this out. They're a little bit older. And you just saw how that team just, were really just trying to power through to get to the finish line. But they pulled that game out at the United Center. So just it was expected during that time for Jordan to be Jordan, for the Bulls to win. And we'll be celebrating championships in Chicago in June, man.
So I know that you played at SIUE for some time and had the opportunity to play in the tournament. What was that whole experience like, and what did it mean to you?
All right, Jaren, you my man, but it's SIUC, dog. We're in Eversville. We're a different program in Eversville. And I'm going to say no disrespect, because I'm going to say all the disrespect. It's totally different. You got SIU and you got Eversville, baby. But no, definitely I'm just joking a little bit, but respect to SIU. They did have some hoopers come through there. But, man, that experience was some of the best basketball years of my life. From I came in as a freshman, having this cockiness, arrogance on being from Chicago and what I explained and how we play ball, and going out nationally and playing AAU in these different camps and leagues, and going to Pittsburgh and playing in a 5-star camp and doing well there, and having a solid career as a high school kid at Gordon Tech and playing in the Catholic League, being, all Catholic League, and just really getting the respect on that front. So when I went to SIU, I went as a preferred walk-on, because at the time they just didn't have the scholarships available. But going down there, what I understood, and this is why I said it was the best basketball years of my life. And I had a good foundation of playing the game when I was a kid, especially when I was in high school, but it just opened my mind up in terms of certain movements and cuts and pace that you have to play with. And I think you can only learn that on 2 levels. That's either at the college level or the professional level. Yep. So you understand how you don't have to go 100 miles an hour every single play or every single move. It's more methodical, using change of pace, using your speed, understanding not going so deep into the lane where you're going to get your shot blocked because you're playing against like 6'8", 6'10", 7-foot dudes of developing pull-up jump shots. So it, from that standpoint, opened my mind up to what basketball is and how deep and rooted the game is and how it can really develop you. But it also helped me grow up as a man and learning the work ethics of just accountability, self-accountability, giving yourself to your team, and just being a good teammate and sacrificing. So those are all elements why that have played a part into my life, or why I say those are the best basketball years of my life. And it helps that you win, like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, I learned how to work hard and I learned different movements, but it wouldn't be the best basketball years of my life if we wasn't winning. Like, if we was losing, we'd be like, yo, that was a struggle. When it helps, so it enhances that experience more. So we were able to, you know, win the conference all 4 years and go to the tournament all 4 years.
Wow.
So it was just like it was a reward for the work that we put in, just the guys that I was around and who I learned of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So in a previous conversation, you told me about the decision you made to focus more on your career after basketball. Could you talk more about that decision? What factors went into making that decision? And
yeah, definitely, man, definitely. So as I mentioned, Ahmad Rashad, right? Mm-hmm. Ahmad Rashad was my dude. Like, I wanted to be the next Ahmad Rashad. Nobody told me that I couldn't be the next Ahmad Rashad. But a lot of people don't know that Ahmad Rashad was a hell of an athlete. Played football.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he played football, Oregon. I believe he was an All-American during his time there. Forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but he's definitely like had himself cemented and had a solid professional career in the NFL. He played with the Vikings and another team, I believe. But he was always my dude. And so I thought that how he was able to have a sports career and then transition into broadcasting, in my head and what my parents taught me and my family taught me, just them understanding, all right, well, you don't want to put your whole dreams and have this, you know, plan A. Like I seen some years ago, like Quade Green was talking about plan A, forget plan B. Like, yes.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That was not how I was raised. And I get, you know what I'm saying, much respect to Cass, like, yo, I'm about to go for it, forget everything else, but you got to be smart about things. You never know how life is going to turn out. And you don't want to turn your back on certain opportunities that will help you in the long run, because you only got a short window to play basketball.
Yeah.
And so as I'm getting older and I understand that, I'm starting to develop a love for broadcasting and how just, you know, not easy, but just how much fun they were having on television. Then I found out how much they were getting paid. I'm like, oh, man,
this is it.
So in high school, I went to Gordon Tech High School on the north side of Chicago. They had a TV production class, and I took it as an elective just to fill some credit hours. But then that was the moment where I understood that this is really going to be my career, because I had a teacher, Miss Jody Bellini, who now teaches over at Eisenhower and Shepherd High School, same TV production classes, that let me know that I have some talent. And if I was serious about this and I wanted to develop and really focus in on this, that I could have a career. And that's what I did. Like I took that class, that elective my sophomore year, and all the rest of my high school career, I was taking a class with her and just developing my skills. And that's what I knew I wanted to major in when it came to SIU. So there were a few different factors that led me to choosing SIU. One, I wanted to still play ball. So my high school coach spoke to Matt Painter at the time, who was the head coach at Southern Illinois. He had took over for Bruce Weber. Bruce Weber got the job at U of I, University of Illinois. So Matt Painter took over. And Matt's now over at Purdue now. He's been a long time coach over there. So we put the call on to him and let him know that, you know, hey, got this kid from Chicago, pretty good player, good grades, good attitude. He's not going to mess up your program. You know, would he be able to walk on, be a preferred walk on? That helped. Of course, I had to go down there and he had to get my tapes and meet me and all of that. So it wasn't just like, yo, I got this kid. Can you put him on your team? Okay, cool, bye. It wasn't
right.
Yeah, you still got to go out and prove yourself.
Exactly.
No matter where you are, what you do in life, man, you have to prove yourself. So that was one factor. I wanted to play ball. The other factor was I had family that was down at Carbondale at SIU. So I had that comfort level of having people down there that I knew would be just easy for me to transition to from high school to college. And then 3, it was just the major. It was communications and specializing in sports broadcasting. Because again, back in my head, all right, I know I'm going down to play ball. I'm about to, you know, experience some things that, you know, I always wanted to and hopefully be put on scholarship so my parents can not pay for tuition. and I can still major in what I want to major in. I had to major, so I was like, all right, bet, let's do it. And it was still in the state of Illinois, so my mother and father could make the drive down 4.5, 5 hour, or 4, depending on how fast you're driving down the car. They can make a drive down there and see some games and still visit me. So those were all the factors that led me into choosing SIU, and it just worked out that I had the best basketball years of my life, and it prepared me for my professional career.
And, you talked a little bit about, the moment where it clicked for you that, hey, this is, more than, there's more options out there than just focusing on basketball. What were some of the qualities and characteristics that, you cultivated during your time, as a student athlete that, helped you during your career?
Man, y'all family, so I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. The number one thing that I realized that helped me, I'm like, I got a 5th-year senior I'm playing behind. I got a cat that came in that started at point guard. I got another cat that's, nice at what he does. I ain't getting much playing time. I know I ain't going overseas to play professionally. I know nobody about to draft me into the league, so I'm not talking about naming nobody in the draft. I'm not doing that. So let me think about, more realistically what I'm about to do with the rest of my life. Right. So that's what it was, man. I wasn't playing as much. And again, it was humbling, but at the same time, I still took that experience and understanding that I'm a part of something special, and I didn't want to give that away. So just solely focus on my broadcasting. Now, my junior year, I had to stop playing just so I can focus on getting my reel together and being involved in the River Region news station down in Carbondale. So it's on campus, it's run by students, and you have a nightly or weeknight news show. They just have different stories being reported on news and sports in Carbondale, Illinois. So I was like, yo, I'm not playing, so let me just try and get this together and think big picture. And I got to shout out my coach at the time, Chris Lowry, who was the head coach at SIU my sophomore to senior year. He understood it, man. He was like, look, I understand what you're trying to do, and you want somebody to be honest with you, right? You don't want somebody to sugarcoat a conversation and be real with you. He's like, look, you're playing behind some dogs, and you're probably not going to get as much time as you think you will. I know you've invested in this program and, working your ass off and all those things, but you're not going to be the guy that, is going to be in that that rotation that I had. And I respect it. I was like, cool. Now, don't get it twisted. Like, I ain't suck. Like, I still give you buckets. I can still give buckets. Right. I got the resume, but still, it was like, all right, well, everybody comes to that point in their life and their career where you're not going to be the guy. Right. So that's what my talent took me. My talent took me to the Division I level, and that's where I decided I wanted it to end. And so I'm like, all right, I bet. Let me transition. And again, bigger picture. Growing up, my family, my parents, letting me know that, yo, you're not gonna play ball your whole life. Have that backup plan. Do something else with your life. Because as I mentioned before, got a small window. It's a small window to play ball. You can be lucky and make it to professionals and play X amount of years, whether that's in the league or overseas. But still, most professionals, they retire maybe early 30s, maybe. If you're lucky, you might be late 30s. Or if you're Vince Carter, playing to 42, but he's a special case. Like Vince Carter is not average, right? So what are you going to do for the next 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life? Right? Lord willing, if you live that long. So you have to put that plan together. And that was what, for me, to answer your question really more directly, Jaron, was those were the factors that were in my head of, all right, well, I'm not playing as much. Let me focus in on my career and do what's best for me, because eventually when I graduate, I gotta go apply for jobs. I have to send my reel and my DVD out to these different news stations, not even just in Chicago, but across the country. So I have to prepare myself in these final 2 years of undergrad to really get myself together, and then just try my best. So thankfully, as I said, I stopped playing my junior year. I focused in on what I needed to do. Made sure my grades were good. My grades were always good, but it was just more so getting that experience and getting that reel together. And thankfully, again, this is why I love my coach for forever, man, Chris Lowry. He let me back on the team my senior year, and I was able to experience that run where we made the Sweet 16 that year in the NCAA tournament. So, like, all of those, again, those experiences, just that people looking out for you, That comes from just being you as a person and just having, those good qualities about yourself and setting yourself up, positioning yourself so that you're, being able to be involved in different, whether it's opportunities or just life experiences that you can take.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to touch on that for a bit. You just talked about positioning yourself or putting yourself in position to be successful down the road. I definitely commend you for making that decision, to sit out your junior year, focus on making your real. Because like I see a lot of players that, they might be in a position where they aren't getting a lot of playing time. They know in the back of their mind that playing pro might not be, what's going to happen for them, but they keep pushing for that.
Right.
So I definitely commend you for being, a role model in that regard. And also a little bit before, you talked about when your high school coach reached out to the head coach at SIU to tell him, he's a good player. He's a really good kid. Grades are really good. That's another way that, you high school players have to position yourselves, for success down the road, because coaches, high school coaches, they're going to have to talk to your head coach, the head coach of the colleges. You got to have a good resume on and off the court. It's not all about being the best player on the court. You got to be a good person. You got to be a good teammate. Grades definitely have to be straight. So I just want to stop and hit on that point for a minute.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man, and that's great advice for a lot of high school kids, because we all know this because we experienced this of playing high school ball at a high level in Chicago, but also playing Division I college basketball. It's like the basketball community is small.
Definitely.
You never know who your head coach knows, your assistant coach knows, who your teammate's family member is. And if you're one of those kids, man, that, it gets surrounded, you're a head case or you're uncoachable, or, you're slacking in school and you just don't really commit yourself, they could find another cat like you that play the same position and probably got more talent and put them on your roster. So all of that plays a part, man. So you think about, again, the bigger picture. And that's one of the conversations one of the points in this conversation that I want to hit on and give advice to a lot of people watching this episode, is that you got to think about the bigger picture in life, man. It's not about the right now. Like, you have to think longevity, long term, about these conversations that you're having, the attitude that you may have, your work ethic, all of those things, man, that plays a part, because it goes a long way.
I think too, Cameron, we talked about this last episode, making the most out of every opportunity. And I think that, your story exemplifies that. You didn't hold your head down. For all you athletes out there that might be entering college, like, you can learn from each situation. And Camron didn't, hold his head down or, mope or anything. He figured out a way to still make the most out of his college experience. And I think that that's, very important, that, you might not be getting a lot of playing time or whatever, but how can I maximize, my situation?
Right. Definitely maximize it, man. So again, as you mentioned, Jaron, like, I wasn't playing as much in college as I wanted to. I'm like, all right, well, cool. I can do one thing. I can go this route and start pouting, or just be a bad teammate, or just kind of disrupting things in practice, or just the team chemistry, and be kicked off the team and kind of go down that path of wasting an opportunity. Or I could be like, look, all right, I accept it in a way that I'm not getting as much playing time, but since I'm not getting as much playing time, I'm gonna treat these practices like they're my game. So I told him, like, yo, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna compete. And then when the game comes, I'm going to be right on the sideline, showing y'all love and hyping y'all up as much as I can. And then these practices, bro, I'm about to go at you hard, man. So that's the route I decided to take with that. But then also understanding that experience of being on a Division I basketball team, how that carries with what I wanted to do in sports broadcasting, right? So if you don't have too much experience playing basketball and you're trying to be a color commentator or a sideline reporter, person, it's going to be a little more difficult to really find your footing and create your own lane. So what I do with my job, and drawing on my experience of playing ball and being from Chicago, I mix in my IQ when it comes to being a ball player. I play point, and if y'all know, if I play point guard, you got to know everything.
Exactly.
Right.
Taking that knowledge and applying that to my broadcast and breaking plays down, but also throwing in some fun stuff with it too. So I'm not like 60 years old. I'm not like that was a nice catch on the block and a nice drop, step and dunk. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna have a little fun with it, man.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Make you feel that you're sitting on the couch with me and we both watching the game. So that's the experiences that I draw on that have helped me. That again, this route that I'm on of like, yo, I'm just gonna stick this out, get the most out of it, maximize this experience, help my parents out with this tuition because I was put on scholarship after my freshman year. So that was a blessing in itself. But I could have threw all that away if I was like, man,
exactly.
Me, I want to play more. I'm better than this dude, that dude. I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, you better than them. All right, get off the team. We'll find somebody else.
Yep.
Bring somebody else in to take your spot. They will be more than happy to fulfill your role. So you got to think about, again, the bigger picture and how your decisions can affect you long term.
Let's talk about breaking into the sports industry. It's not an easy thing to do. So what was your first, I guess, opportunity within the field? Like once you left SIU, and how did you obtain it?
First opportunity was after I graduated in 2007 from SIU. Again, getting that reel together. I'm everywhere in the city. I'm at WGN, I'm at NBC, ABC.
Grinding.
Back then, it wasn't really links. I'm saying back then, like it was like 50 years ago. But like in 2007, 2008, man, you weren't really sending links that you could email to somebody with your reel. So you physically had to mail a DVD and mail your resume in certain situations. So I was like all over the city. I was mailing it all over the country, going on different websites, trying to figure out who needed a sports broadcast or a color commentator or interview person, whoever it was. I was trying to fill out these applications for those positions. So it got to a point so much that I was going up to WGN, and I always laugh when I head up there now because I appear on the show. It formerly was known as Sports Feed, but now that show is defunct now. But the times that I would go up there to appear on the show, I would laugh because back when I was just trying to get on and trying to get a job, I was at WGN so much that they knew who got first name. They were like, Camron, they got your DVD. You got to stop coming up here, bro. One of the security guards told me, like, you got to stop, bro, because it's starting to become too much. But I was just hungry.
You got to love it.
Yeah, you got to. Until somebody tells you no, man, keep going. You know what I'm saying? That tells a lot about a person. So striking out and not really having any opportunities that I thought I should. I had to get little jobs here and there, man. I was working at Best Buy. I started doing like after school programs for the Y just to try and get money in my pocket. Still living in my parents' crib, but that's what it was. Like that's the process of everything. Yeah. So my first opportunity came with Comcast CN100 Sports in Chicago. And I just randomly woke up one morning. It was maybe about 6 a.m. and hopped on the website and just poured my heart out to the programming manager in an email. After I went on the website, found his email, sent him a direct email, and just poured my heart out into it of who I am, my experience, what I want to do in the industry, all of those things. And so later on that morning, he replied back. I got an interview and they brought me in, but not as a sports reporter or sports broadcaster. They brought me in as a grip. So if you don't know what a grip is, it's the lowest position on the pole. I was carrying camera cases. I was basically like the bodyguard for the camera guy. So especially football games, if I'm on the sideline and I'm working with the camera guy, I'm holding the cables. And if a play or a play is coming out of bounds and these players are getting ready to converge into the camera, I had to be the guy to throw the camera guy out the way and just really kind of shield him and block him. So that I was essentially a cleanup bodyguard type dude when I first got into the industry. So that was my first opportunity. And I think they did that to challenge me to see how I was going to react, right? I could have chose a route of man, I ain't doing this. I'm too good for this. I played ball. I played in the Sweet 16. It's embarrassing, man. You ain't about to be out here humiliating me like this.
Right.
Again, bigger picture. All right, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to work hard. This ain't nothing. I'm in shape. I work out. I carry camera cases and all that. That's fine. I'm going to do this. But at the same time, y'all know I want to be on camera. So I'm going to keep talking to you all about these opportunities of where I can get or really plant my footing into just kind of enhancing my career and getting that experience. So they would start giving me little things here and there, go and do cover a basketball game. We would do a post-game interview on camera, and then I would just snowball. Then I would start doing sideline reporting for some more of the bigger games, and just going and going and going. And as the years go by, as you mentioned earlier when you introduced me, Bryce, of getting opportunities of working at the Big Ten Network and now doing things with MSG Network in New York and overtime. and doing things with the Jam and co-hosting there. So like all those opportunities previously when I first started out led me to the position I'm in now. But in hindsight, if I would have chose a different route, I'm like, man, forget all this. I'm not doing all this. And, had this arrogance about myself, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now.
We spoke about the sports industry being, a very competitive, industry. To be successful and getting hired, sometimes you have to be in the right place at the right time. But oftentimes you have to separate yourself. So can you talk about like some of the things you did to maybe separate yourself, to get some of the opportunities that you did have?
Yeah. So when I was mentioning about the part of me not trying to be the fully traditional color commentator guy or a sideline reporter dude, like, X and O's type, like I got that in my bag, but at the same time, I want to make whoever is watching the broadcast or watching the game that I'm covering, I want them to feel like I'm sitting down with them and we're watching TV and I'm just talking to them, or watching the game and we're just talking about the game, right? I'm going to break it down in that aspect for the traditionalist basketball fan or the non-traditionalist.
Right.
So I'm going to have things where I'm mentioning certain aspects of the game where it's like, all right, well, if you know it and you played it or you coached it, I'm like, okay, he got something. He knows what he's talking about. Or if you don't understand what's happening going on, I'll break things down to you. And then having that, but then also having some fun in it too. Like I'm still young, man. I'm still in my 30s. So like, I'm not about to be, again, about this before we start this report. I'm not about to be the corny dude on there. I'm like, yeah, Bob, that was, a great slam dunk and a great crossover move. I'm not about to do that,
Right.
So when Jalen Brunson was at Stevenson High School and they won the state championship back in 2015, I gave him the nickname the Surgeon just because he's just what he does on the court now. He just chops up his defenders is nasty. Like I would throw like nasty or like that's good handle, or he's in his bag right now. Like all of them come naturally that I'm gonna talk like I'm watching a game with my cousins or my family members.
Right.
So I'm gonna bring that aspect of it, but have it in package that up in a professional way where it's not like, oh man, my man over here just like crazy. Like that's more. I think that's more acceptable now with the new generation of just how sports media and sports broadcasting is being consumed, because you're able to do that social media wise on Twitch or IG or Twitter Live, all that stuff, which is dope because it makes me even more comfortable where I didn't have to be fully suited and booted and clean shaven and all that stuff. Like I'm saying, that whole traditional way of what people thought you should look like being on camera. And it goes back to the representation, like how I have my hair now, how I have my beard. I want people to show this, like, yo, I'm not about to be the traditional dude. Like, it's other ways to look and be professional. And it's not one skin tone. It's not one haircut or one clean shaven face or shaved face. Or it's not, wearing a suit and tie all the time. Sometimes it's just kind of like throwing little details and, intricacies into what you're wearing, what you're rocking, what you're saying. So in those aspects, that's how I try and separate myself from everybody else, right? But then it's also of what I know in the game, the relationships that I've built, and these opportunities of being able to interview athletes one-on-one, like being able to interview KD one-on-one for Nike events. And same thing with Anthony Davis, being able to interview him one-on-one for Nike events. Like, yo, all of these experiences and just how those conversations go, I take that with me and put that into my broadcasting or whatever I do. Like I'm always going to be myself. And I said this before, I'm not going to be somebody that's one way on camera or on social media and a totally different way off it, right? I'm going to still be me. And that comes with, that comes with age, that comes with experience, and that just comes with the understanding of yourself and what you want out of life.
So speaking about like your day-to-day life now, I know that one thing that excites me about, pursuing my dream and career that I want to have is that, it relates to something that I'm passionate about, sports and basketball specifically. So one thing that I look forward to is waking up every day and being able to work around basketball. I know that, in my experience, this may be something that's universal, but anytime that I never get tired of talking about something I'm passionate about. Like I could put 8 hours in a day, 10 hours, 12, working on something that has to do with basketball, and it feels less tedious. So for you, somebody that's in that position now, you wake up and make a living doing something that you love to do. Can you speak more about that experience and having that opportunity?
Yeah, man. I compare it to this, right? So we got high school cats watching this, college cats, professional maybe, anybody, but you remember like watching film and film breakdown and studying all that stuff when you played ball. Like that was necessary to be successful in whoever you matched up against, or having a scouting report. Right. So it's all prep. Right. So I liken that to when I have to make an appearance on, the MSG 150 in New York for MSG Networks. Like we have a script, right? So that script is the opponent for that day, right? So I want to make sure that I research and watch as much film and get as much information as I can so that I'm more prepared on what I'm going to say and my talking points. So that's how I compare watching film as when you play ball to what I do now. And working with MSG 150. So I look forward to that, man. That's a love. Talking about sports, talking about basketball, especially nowadays, how sports, and not even nowadays, but it's always like sports and culture have always intertwined. But I think it's more nowadays because of the platform of social media. Athletes are more vocal on sharing things and sharing their thoughts and feelings. So it's more, it's enhanced in terms of my passion and my love for just talking sports, because of being able to relate to a lot of athletes that look like me and understanding their background. So I can kind of get a sense in a way of where they're coming from and how they feel. So for me to kind of, in a way, not speak for them, but, tell people out there that I can relate to this, or this is maybe what they're trying to think or how they feel or what they're saying, because I've gone through similar situations or experiences. Right, whether that's on the court or off the court. So that excites me to just bring that representation out, but then also prepare for just these appearances, man. So every day is different, which is great in terms of how I'm preparing and what I'm doing for that day, whether that's appearing on a show or doing an interview on social media or jumping on the amateurs with y'all cats. With this, man, that's exciting. But in a family home sense, like it's traditionally waking up 6 a.m., me and my wife getting our son ready, getting ourselves ready, and we out the door, and getting that part of our day going. And I do little things just personally, just to get myself mentally where I'm comfortable, whether that's reading or meditating or working out. And then I just kind of get to my task at hand, the other task at hand, whether that's work or just, grown man stuff and taking care of bills and all that. So,
gotcha. If you, now that you've been in the industry for a while, is there any specific advice that you would give your 18-year-old self, 19-year-old self? Like, if you can go back and talk to yourself when you were, I guess, a freshman in college, sophomore in college, is there any specific advice you would give?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think probably the biggest thing that I would tell myself is don't belittle the sports industry. Like, treat it on par and on the same level as you treat basketball. Because as a freshman, when I was 18, like it was like basketball and then like, sports, right? And then above sport, or not sports, but sports broadcasting, what I wanted to do for my life. And it was academics and like basketball. But that's a bad example, man. Basketball, academics are always good. Not to say that I was a bad student. I always was a good student. I've never had any academic issues. But of course, when it comes to love, like obviously basketball is going to be up there. It's always up there for me. And it's like, all right, well, if I want to play ball, I got to take care of my academics. So I made sure that was good.
Right.
Beneath that, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? And that was sports broadcasting. So I would tell myself to take that more seriously and trying to get involved in more things, whether that's the National Association of Black Journalists and making connections there. Because again, you never know who knows who and how that can set you up for the rest of your life and the opportunities that it can create for you. So I would tell myself to make sure that I'm as involved with learning and understanding more of the sports broadcasting, sports media industry as I am with basketball, and be able to balance that out more.
For the college students that may want to go into broadcasting, are there any like specific skills that they would need to be successful in the field?
Yes, be able to speak. You have to learn to speak. And I'm not just saying, okay, well, yeah, I know how to speak. I know English, not like that, but how to be able to hold conversations, especially in today's medium with sports broadcasting, sports media. If you want to make an impact, you have to be able, one, to hold a conversation, gain people's attention, hold their attention, and be able to tell stories and make others feel comfortable when in terms of the interview setting, right? So that was the biggest thing that I learned. I was naturally, as a kid, an introvert. And as I got older, started to kind of come out of my shell more. And I think the experiences early on, when I first got into the business professionally after graduating, I had to learn, to ask the right questions, to not have this demeanor and just these facial expressions like I don't care. So it was just more so like, you had a good game today. What happened? Work for you. Okay, what are your plans for next game? Like, just
right. Yep.
Being able to speak, have a conversation, just treat it naturally. So that will be the first piece of advice. But then also the bigger piece of advice would be to just kind of stay on the journey, stay on the path. Scoop Jackson is a legend in sports broadcasting and sports media. He's a Chicago dude, man, and he gave me the best advice that I've ever gotten in the industry. And he told me, because I was young, like, I need an opportunity. I need to go get it, blah, 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 blah. Like, man, just that young energy. I'm all over the place. I need to do something. But he told me this. He was like, look, enjoy the process or enjoy the journey, and the end result will take care of itself. Mm. So when he told me that, and we were speaking on the phone, I'm like, I never thought about it that way, right? And then this goes back to what we talked about when you go to college or you go and play professionally, about playing at different paces. Right. So when I was first in sports broadcast, like, again, young energy, I want to be all over the place. I need to work. I need to work. But it's like, pace it out. Like, you're going to be good. Just know that you're going to be good. Just enjoy the process. And that means enjoy the ups and downs, learn from them to make you better off. And the end result will take care of itself.
You hit a bit on, the skills, that athletes can, kind of, work with, in order to do some of the things that you've done. But how can students actually prepare for, a career in sports broadcast?
You can do it right now. Like, I know everybody play 2K mm-hmm. with your teammates, or you with your family members, or whoever it is, like, or even with yourself. Like, I used to do this sometimes too with some of my friends. Like, I would do a broadcast of cats playing 2K. Like, we put the TV on mute, and it's me just understanding, again, being a point guard and understanding everything about the game and just people's backgrounds and all that stuff. Like, I would just, say different things about cats that was playing in the league on the game, or what college they were from, and just work on my skills there and calling things, or just how gameplay and all that stuff. So that's one way you can do it. And I think this Gen Z and emerging adults now have so much access, and there's really kind of no excuse for y'all to be like, well, I ain't really got the tools or anything to really work on that. It's like, yes, you can. You got all the tools yourself. You got your own platform. You got an Instagram page. You got a platform. If you got a Twitter page, you got a platform. You got Zoom or whatever it is, or YouTube page, you got a platform. It's all about just showing yourself and putting yourself out there, right? Again, you're not going to be 100% dope that first time out. Like, nobody is. If somebody was killing it, they first go at it in sports broadcasting and sports media, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. And they're lying to themselves, more importantly. But you got to put yourself out there and try that and just see how it feels. And I hate this to this day, of going back and watching my old games or games that I've done, or features or events that I've done. Because it's just like, it's kind of like, not so much as before it's cringeworthy, but I'm just like, it's tough trying to hear myself. But you need it. It's necessary. Going back to that film study. Like, you need to watch yourself and like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that there, or maybe I need to be more excited, or maybe I need to have a bigger just delivery on certain aspects of the game that happened or whatever it was. So like, you need that, and that's necessary. So you can create your own platforms and make sure that you go after it. So that would be one piece of advice for people that want to get into it, but then also just try and network, right? Try and find mentors that truly, genuinely want to help you. Like, there's a lot of cats out here, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A lot of cats out here that just try and use people just because they're young and like, oh, you need me. If you get that feeling, then just like, all right, I appreciate your time, thank you, and try and go another route with it. So really reach out to somebody that you trust, or maybe somebody from your family or your trusted circle can put you in contact with, and then have those conversations and see how they can help you. I do it all the time with a lot of people that reach out to me. Like, even with, you know, you, Jaron, and also you, Bryce, like I always tell y'all and I tell everybody, if I can help you, I'm going to help you. Whether that's through text, conversations, coffee, email, whatever it is. Keep that in mind and go with it from that. But then another thing would be too, if you're still in school, whether that's undergrad or graduate school, try and seek out different programs or communication classes or sports media classes or journalism classes, I should say, to really enhance your skills and get yourself to be in that industry, right? So nobody can stop you from learning than you. Like you're your biggest barrier. I run into people all the time, man, like, yo, I love what you do. I was in it for a couple of years, but man, I had to get out of it, man. It wasn't really just working for me. And that's no knock to them. Like they want to go a different route, but I was like, yo, I'm invested, man. Like my first real opportunities didn't come to like my 8th or 9th year in business. And I'm talking like big platforms, right? Like Big Ten Network, or working with CBS as a sports anchor there, or doing the IHSA state basketball games. Like it took some time, and I had to learn and develop myself. All of those things, because going back to the advice I would give to my 18-year-old self, my freshman self at SIU, I didn't put journalism and sports broadcasting on the same level as I did me playing ball. So I was able to get internships, so really focus in on that. So I'm like, yo, I had to hustle up, and you know, I was last in sprints. I'm not about to make my time because I didn't really focus on it like I should. So when I came out, I'm like trying to play catch up with everybody else. So that's why I think delayed my process. But once I got into it and I developed my own lane, it was beautiful. So all of those just jewels or pieces of advice that I would give fall into that, of making sure that you're doing everything that you can to learn and utilize these resources that you have around you, that you have literally in your hand. Like, this is a resource. Like, you have a phone. Man, I still do it now. Like, I still go on YouTube and I watch, you know, Nate Robinson on House Guests, like just trying to learn from him, or watch, you know what I'm saying, Drink Champs, or watch All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, or watch, you know, I'm looking forward to watching this Scary Champion and Jamel Hill, their new show that they have coming up. Bomani Jones, a lot of people, Monica McNutt, my homegirl who has a podcast, just all of these different people that I try and pick and choose from, so I'm still learning and still just developing as a person. So like, all right, well, I see what they're doing here, but I'm gonna try and do it this way. So it fits, you know, just who I am as a person. Because you don't want to just take. All right, bet. You do this, you say this, I'm gonna say that same exact thing, you put it in mind and pass it off like I'm doing. It's like, nah, don't do that, because you're gonna get called out quick. Especially today, like everybody got receipts, everybody got all that stuff. Yeah. So don't do that. Be yourself, right? So you have that access and you have that resource right here in your hands. You just got to utilize it.
So we talked about, you know, earlier we talked about a few of the big names that you've worked with. You've gotten to do some really cool things. What are some of your favorite moments so far?
Some of my favorite moments of being in the industry, man. Sometimes I forget some of them, and then it's like randomly, like one day I'll think about something, or my wife will remind me, like, yeah, you remember you did this? And not to say like, yo, I done been all over the world. I'm not saying that, but it's just like the amount of just games or events or interviews that I do. Sometimes you get lost in that and you kind of forget, because it's like almost in a sense on to the next. But I think probably, if I can name a few, would be one when I interviewed Coach K. This was years ago. He had came out with a book. It was called The Gold Standard, and this was after Team USA won the gold medal in 2008. So he was back in Chicago. He's from Chicago, back in Chicago. Was going on his book tour, and I interviewed him. And this was the first time that I ever met Coach K or saw him in person, anything like that. And growing up, like, I was a big Duke guy. Like, I still love Duke to this day. That was just my school. The only time that I didn't love Duke was when they played against Michigan in the Fab Five. That's when I was like, all right, well, I ain't going to cats that I feel more comfortable with. Like, I relate to the Fab Five more than I do Duke. Right. So, like, I was hyped on them. And so I go downstairs, because they had him downstairs in the basement before they brought him up to where the audience was for his book signing. Go downstairs. We're doing a one-on-one interview, like super exclusive stuff for Comcast. And I walk in the room, and he's sitting down, kind of talking with his family, and he stood up. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know Coach K was like 6'2", 6'3". So I was kind of taken back by that. I'm like, oh, okay. He shook my hand, and he was super cool. He was funny as hell. And it was just a great experience on that front. And I was just, again, taken back by just him being over 6 feet, because you don't see him around cats that's like 6'8",
Exactly.
6'8".
Yeah.
And you think he's like 5'8" at the most.
That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah, he was like, nah, he's like 6'2", like legit. It's cool though, man. That's one experience that stands out. Doing Mr. Basketball interviews with a lot of kids that won an award from Chicago. Jabari Parker stands out just because of who he was off and on the court, and more so because of who he was off the court, of understanding, one, his heritage, who he is, his Samoan heritage, his heritage as a black man, and being from descendants of Africa, and just as a 17-year-old, knowing that, I'm like, you're far more than I was, and then a lot of people were, of just knowing, self, right? Just he had a big knowledge of self, and he was also like one of the top players in the country. So that was always great. Jaleel Okafor, Charlie Moore, Mark Smith, Jalen Brunson, like hearing their stories, man. Doing interviews with KD was dope as hell at Kenwood High School a couple of years ago. Even this past All-Star break, 2020 Chicago, doing events with Anthony Davis, man, like it was super cool. So like all of those things are just great experiences for me, where you find out like these dudes at the highest level are just people, man.
Yeah.
And you just sit and cool with them. If you can connect with them, right? Because they're not just like, like anybody. You're not going to be naturally cool with somebody that you don't know. Like that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
That comes through conversation and just a assurance or comfort from both sides to be able to have these conversations and to make things work. So I was able to get that with AD and KD and Coach K and a lot of these cats that I've interviewed. So I think playing basketball and understanding the game and being around that helps, because naturally, again, as I mentioned, if you don't know somebody that you naturally have your guard up, in your conversation, you might be like, oh, okay, you know what you're talking about.
Right.
Let me lower that guard down. So those are some of the things that stick out of my head right now.
I just wanted to give, prospective students that are looking to, become a sports broadcaster, some things they can look for. So those are, things that all of us, hoopers or athletes would love to be a part of.
Yeah, man. Drawing those experiences of playing a game, because we need y'all. We need more people that look like us, right? Sure. Black, brown, male, female. We need both sides, especially on the women's side. Like we need it. So go after it. Don't be afraid, man. Again, as I mentioned, hit me up on Twitter, IG, all of that stuff. I'm more than willing to give y'all advice and help y'all out on my path. More inspiration from this appearance on the amateurs.
Definitely. So last question, we usually do like a quote of the day. But I think with the sports professionals, we want to ask you guys if there's a quote or a mantra that you live by that you want to share with us. Yeah.
The Scoop Jackson quote is something that I live by. Enjoy the process and the end result, take care of yourself. That's one. But then the go-to one for me is Muhammad Ali. You see the picture right there. Like he's one of my heroes. But he had a quote where he says, your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. All right? So if you can't see, not even just physically, if you can't see, but if you can't envision that or manifest that into your head, then you're not going to be able to attain it. You're not. There's no way. But when you start to manifest it, envision it in your head, you physically start to see it more. It's like, oh, okay, there's my target. And liking that, that's a boxing metaphor, that's a life metaphor, whatever you want to choose it. That's why I love the quote, because you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to religion. If you don't have faith, then how are you going to, believe that things are going to work out? All those things. And that's why I love the quote so much. Like you have to be able to, one, physically, well, I'm not going to say one physically, that's not where it starts, but it starts in the mind. That's where the birthing is. Mentally, you have to be able to see it, to envision it, to manifest it. Then that's where the physical sight comes from. Now you can develop that plan or that strategy to obtain those goals or get to where you want to be. So that's my quote. Check it out. If your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see, by Muhammad Ali. That's my quote.
I love it. Well, thank you again for joining us. What are your socials? Where can people reach you at?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook under the same name, Camron Smith. Do not put the E in Camron. It's Camron Smith. Reach out to me. Definitely love to connect with anybody that wants to learn or just want some advice, man. So I'm always here for y'all. Y'all know that, Jaron and Bryce. I appreciate y'all having me on. The amateurs, I done made my debut. Now my follow game about to go up, man. I'm verified on IG. I'm hyped about that. But no, I appreciate being on, man. Y'all got a great show, a great platform. Just continue success on what you guys are building together. Yep.
Thanks again, Cam. Sharing your story, it was very inspirational, and I know it'll touch a lot of athletes out there. So thanks again.
Appreciate you. You know, man.